G'day, my name's Gordon Dedman and welcome to another episode of Bushcraft Survival. In this series we look at various aspects of Australian bushcraft, survival and outdoor bush skills. In today's episode we're going to be having a talk to Chris Perbedy. Chris is a snake and reptile handler here in Darwin in the Northern Territory. Chris consults for both government and non-government agencies including the Army on the removal of snakes and crocodiles and snakebite first aid. We're going to be having a general chat to Chris about snakes and how to treat a snake bite from an Australian snake. Well, g'day Chris, and welcome to the channel.
Good, thanks for having us.
Well, just what I thought I would start off with today is to get you to talk about just a little bit about yourself, a lot of the viewers, to let them know what you do and some things like that.
Well, my name's Chris Perbedy. I'm a professional snake catcher based in the Northern Territory. I consult for government and non-government agencies on capture, removal, first aid of dangerous reptiles, including snakes, crocodiles.
Right. And how long have you been doing this for?
I've been doing it professionally now for 16 years, and I have all my fingers and toes, so that means I've been relatively successful in doing it.
Okay, excellent. And is this around the Darwin area or sort of all over the place?
I'm based in Darwin, but travel throughout the Northern Territory doing it wherever the work's needed. If it's down in the Canterbury desert or if it's out in Arnhem Land, wherever the work is needed. But I'm primarily based here in Darwin because Darwin's our major capital city, and that's where we have this conflict between humans and reptiles.
Good stuff. And it's not just snakes, it's all reptiles that use it.
It is all reptiles, and sometimes it's rescuing reptiles from people and people from reptiles. Right. But the main conflict we have is people and their fear of snakes.
Well, what we might get you to do, Chris, if you don't mind, just if you could sort of start telling us a little bit of an overview about Australian snakes and some of the risks, some of the myths perhaps, and what we can do to keep ourselves safe in the bush.
So Australia is home to probably the largest biomass of snakes anywhere in the world. We're quite lucky at that. The majority of them aren't venomous, and that's a common thing that people assume, that all snakes are venomous. However, that said, all snakes need to be treated as if they're venomous. Unless you can safely tell the difference between one and the other, that's where the risk comes. We have some of the most venomous snakes in the world in Australia. However, we don't have the depth like we see overseas, and there's a few factors to that. One is the way we measure our venom. The assays that we use in Australia for measuring toxicity are not the same assays that are used around the world. So when you say top 10 most venomous snakes, that often needs to look at how that's being measured to see the truth in it, because Australian snakes are very toxic, but we test them on mice. However,
just how many mice 1 milligram of
the LD50 test that's used. Yet we're seeing up to 120,000 deaths from snakebite around the world. Now we're not seeing that in Australia. Australia we might get 2 or 3 deaths a year. So yes, our snakes are toxic, but there's no even playing field. You're comparing apples and oranges when you look from, say, a Sri Lankan snake to an Australian snake. That said, they shouldn't be underestimated. Australian snakes have highly potent neurotoxins, and these neurotoxins are designed to really cause rapid collapse in their prey. So what happens is when an Australian snake bites its prey source, the idea is that it immobilises it really quickly, and so the prey source can't run away very far and the snake gets to eat it. The venom obviously also works as a digestive agent, helping digest the prey item from the inside out as well as immobilising it. In humans, when we see snake bites, because we're obviously a lot larger than the intended prey, snakes aren't out there to eat people. Well, not in Australia anyway. These guys, the react that we see is things like from brown snakes, for example, which are one of the most common bites in Australia. We see bleeding, and that's effect of a coagulant or an anticoagulant in the venom, which takes away our blood's ability to clot and we bleed out. Now, that's something that happens really quickly. It can happen within 20-25 minutes. The neurotoxins we can see collapse in about that 30 minutes, so it's not uncommon if someone who's had a bad bite to fall and drop. So their venom does translate to humans being large mammals very quickly.
our Australian snakes, they generally have small fangs compared to, say, the African snakes, don't they?
Yeah, so Australian snakes are called elapids, meaning Latin for front fang, where what we see overseas are these large pit viper type fangs. They're a hinge fang, where Australian snakes, their yield of venom is much less than overseas. Their fang size is about 3.5 millimeters, but their venom is top choice. To think of Australian snakes, the difference between if you wanted to get drunk overseas, you have to drink beer. It could take you forever to get drunk, but you got a lot of it. Australian snakes, you're drinking Bundaberg rum, right, and it knocks you really quickly.
So and with snakes a lot, I remember on the one of the NORFORCE survival courses, you were talking about how a lot of people, particularly with the difference between young and old snakes, you get a lot of fatalities or people getting bitten from young snakes. I remember one example you told about one guy that was bitten by, didn't even realise that he was bitten, and it was he died as a result of it, but said not all snake bites end up in those two common fang marks.
Yeah, so the first thing we look at there is little snakes are dangerous. Obviously this snake here, he's getting up to 1.3 metres.
And what sort of snake have we got here?
This is a mulga snake or a king brown, which is one of our large heavy-bodied Australian species. Something like this is really obvious, and if he bites you, it's going to be a very painful bite. His venom will cause swelling. You'll certainly know about it. Where things like a western brown, we've had fatality in the Northern Territory from a 40 centimetre western brown. It killed a guy and he actually didn't know he'd been bitten. There's been a number of bites that have occurred where people have actually either didn't think they were bitten or because there was no pain underestimated it. So pain and two fang marks are not guaranteed with Australian snakes. If you get bit by a rattlesnake, you'll know about it. Because a rattlesnake bite, it's a big fang, it's like being hit with a Mack truck. Where Australian snakes are a little bit more elegant. They can only give you a small scratch, but that scratch will have only a small amount of venom, but that venom is so very toxic and it causes death very quickly.
But I get a lot of questions on the channel from people that are wondering about when we're camping out, like people that are sleeping under a tarp, so they're not in a tent, they're in a tarp or one of the natural shelters that we make a lot of in bushcraft. And on the survival side of things, what are the risks of, say, camping out in the bush and actually being able to stay up there, and what's the actual risk of snakes when you say you've got a fire by a campsite where you've got a tarp, you haven't got a size on your tent? What is the actual real risks of snake? I personally never had a problem, never worry about that too much, but I guess it's knowledge is power. The more you know about the snake. But what's your take on that?
Snakes don't like humans. So regardless of what people say, even people that keep snakes as pets, they don't like humans. They'll tolerate humans for being fed and that, but they're not an animal that is social with each other, let alone with another species. So if you're unlucky enough to have one come in the tent, it's pretty rare, or even if it's a makeshift shelter. You've got to think where you set it up. If you set up a makeshift shelter too close to water, in the Northern Territory you've got a crocodile risk, but also the wildlife is going to come to water. So positioning of where you are, avoiding natural trails, so that obviously your natural trails are a great source for hunting in survival situations, but they're not necessarily the best part to be if you're going to set up camp. High ground's always better in that respect because snakes will tend to stay to the lowlands. If you've had a fire, that's going to be something that's discouraging, so snakes don't run towards fire, they go away from it.
We get a lot of questions on that having a fire, but that actually dispel snakes, and I find it's really dispelled a lot of things with your insects, but I find it's the biggest menace up here is mosquitoes more than anything else. Spiders clearing all the debris away, but it's more, I suppose, being quiet, the snake wandering across your position, that's probably the biggest risk, so when you're asleep.
So snakes don't have external eardrums. So they have a primitive eardrum, but they don't have like a hole like we do or mammals do, because if they did, they'd fill up with dirt. So a lot of what they feel is based on vibration and movement. So if you're not trying to be stealthy in your camp, you're moving around, the noise you make, all that sort of stuff is going to actually keep the snakes away. It can't exclude them because you never know, you might have set up right on a snake's trail. What has happened, I know of people that if you find one snake, there is likelihood of finding more, particularly in the Northern Territory in our June, July cool period. Because what happens is that as one snake moves through, particularly a female, she'll let off pheromones. Males will then follow those pheromones. If you can imagine, when a female snake's going through, she's letting out that Chanel number 10, and all the fellas are following it. So that's one of those risks. But if your area around your camp is clear, bare earth, that's not only for fire, but that's also keeps snakes away. Snakes don't come for dead prey, so if you're drying out fish or you had a kill, they're not going to come in for that. Goannas and crocodiles might, but snakes aren't going to come in, so it's not a real risk. It just happens that, we like to set up areas where snakes like to live. Yeah. So we need to think, we're maybe not camping so close to water, or maybe not camping in a creek bed and things like that, even though that might be the best shelter. That's a thoroughfare. Snakes like cover. But even for a big snake like this, his greatest predatory risk is a goanna or a wedge-tailed eagle.
I think with sort of our overseas viewers, particularly like in Europe, I think yes, we have lots of dangerous critters in Australia. Nothing on land that'll eat you, but sure enough in the water, and lots of things that can bite you. We have a lot of poisonous animals, but I think it's grossly exaggerated. People from Europe think that everything's going to bite you, everything's out to get you. Yes, we have a lot, but it is dispersed over a large area, and if you look after what you're doing and you're careful, you shouldn't really, I've found, have too much of a problem. But I've had a lot of friends from Europe just expecting at every turn you've got something poisonous waiting to get you. Do you find that as well? There's like a big exaggeration?
There is, and that's probably Australians are to blame for that, because we kind of are proud of our dangerous creatures, but they're not out to get you. Simply for me here, I've got a highly venomous mulga snake, or king brown. He's
actually a member of the black snake.
They're the largest member of the black snake. He's sitting on my boot. Now I'm no risk here because my boots are solid leather. I recommend people wear a good sturdy boot. These are Ariat boots. They're good. They're actually made from cowhide. I'm at no risk there. I've got a decent pair of pants, whether they're jeans. As long as you're not wearing sandals. I mean, there are certain people that like wearing sandals out bush. I probably think those people aren't safe. You need cover.
They've issued army boots on, which served me well in the bush.
Yep. Just look at, when you're looking for your protective equipment, things like good boots, solid pants, not skin tight stuff. You need to have stuff with a bit of air gap, just so that if you do get a strike, you've got some protection. Sleeves down makes a big difference.
I like what I thought.
Yeah, so if you fell over collecting firewood, your hands are going to be there. For me, I always, with the amount of work I do with reptiles, I wear gloves when I'm collecting firewood and stuff camping, purely because that's where you're going to have that interaction. If you lift under a log and a snake comes out, your hands are there. The other thing is, in any sort of bush situation, once your hands are damaged, that really changes everything.
Yeah, it certainly does.
You get a burn to the hand or a cut, that suddenly you're useless. And there's a big psychological impact when you can't use your hands as well.
Well, as far as, so what we might do is go over, say if in the unfortunate experience that you are bitten by a snake, and say you haven't done the right things, or you've got the incorrect clothing on, what are some of the first things that you should do if you are in that unfortunate situation?
So the best first aid is not getting bitten in the first place. So just reiterating, solid protective clothing. Don't put your hands anywhere you can't see. If you're unsure and you haven't got protective clothing, use a stick or something to check. If you've got to move a log or something, a torch. A lot of snake bite could be prevented by covered footwear and a torch. The torches are great. They give you the ability to see in the dark without night vision. And that's where a lot of people get bit, because they're walking back on a track from a swimming hole. They're barefoot because they've been in the water, and they get bitten. If you do get bitten, it is really important to stay calm. That's an easy thing to say, but what Australian snake venom does is it travels through the lymphatic system, or generally speaking it doesn't always. So you want to stay as calm as you can. You want to reduce your movement, but you don't need to go kill the snake, catch the snake, take a photo of the snake. All that time is wasted. The best thing you can do is, hopefully you have a first aid kit, and I'll pop this guy away in a sec, and we'll have a look at the first aid treatment and so. Sounds good.
Okay, Chris, what have we got here?
What I've got here is a selection of different basic first aid things for snake bite. Now, like a knife in a survival situation, you get what you pay for with first aid. There's a lot of cheap, nasty products on the market, and if it only costs a few bucks, it's probably only gets you a few bucks worth of value. This is a custom snake bite kit, and some bandages are made for snake bite, and here are some bandages that are generally used. However, with the right training, they can be used quite effectively for snake bite. One thing I will warn people is that snake bite bandages need to be of good quality. They need to be made from elastic materials. They can't be made without stretch. And what I would say for that is this is what's called a crate bandage,
Which is in most of your standard first aid kits.
And the reason this is in most first aid kits is because it costs like 5 cents. This is good if you're taking a day off work and you run into the boss at the shops. You can wrap this around your arm and you'll think you're sick. However, it doesn't do anything for what we're trying to do. And the goal with snake bite first aid is trapping into the bone and slowing venom movement. If you get a bandage that you can see through, it's not going to do that. Right? And once again, like the quality, these are a very cheap bandage. Probably have some purpose, but they don't have a purpose in a snake bite.
I mean, you wouldn't even strap a sprained ankle.
It would be very hard to do that because there's no elastic properties in it. A good bandage should be much wider, ideally, and should have elastic running both ways through it. So this is an ACE brand bandage, but there's a lot of different good quality elasticized bandages that are on the market that do multiple things in a first aid kit. The reason I show this one is because I like it because it is nice and wide. My personal preference for snake bite bandages is they should be 12 to 15 centimetres wide, and this one's 4.5 metres long but it's stretched, so in a survival situation you can have one of them with you. That said, how do you get the pressure right? And that's one thing that this bandage needs training. Where another bandage on the market that's come out from a company called Survival and Safe, which is a snake education company. This is the first bandage that's actually been made for snake bite. And what it does is this bandage is made of good elastic, and it actually has a pictogram here, and that pictogram is used to show how to get the tension in. I think this is a great step forward in first aid. There are drawbacks to this bandage. One of the drawbacks is I'd like to see it wider and I'd like to see it longer, but this is heads and shoulders above that.
Can these be used for other medical purposes other than just snake bite?
Yeah, certainly. However, this pictogram on it is for snake bite. Yeah. So if you have a sprained ankle, this is going to do the job, but the pressure for snake bite is not ideal for a sprained ankle. It's about the same, if not a bit higher. And one of the things I've learned over the years in going to the hospital with people who've been bitten by snakes is that a lot of people, and particularly Australians, who are first aid trained, don't get the pressure right. The pressure needs to be quite firm to actually stop that lymph and venom movement. So there's two ways you can go about it. Always being prepared is the best option. You can pop 2 of these in your backpack and then have a splint, or you can even use a bit of stick as an improvised splint. However, be careful when you're looking for that splint because you might find the snake again or another snake. Or this is actually a customised first aid kit for snake bite. It's made by a company called Survival Emergency Solutions. They're a small Australian company that make things fit for purpose. This is the first aid kit I've seen that is fit for purpose snake bite. It's molly, it fits on your backpack or it can attach to your belt. First aid gear is no good unless it's with you.
Bit like a survival kit everyone has, everything in the kitchen that's sink and it's left in the car and it's no use to them.
Exactly. It's a bit like the bloke who's got his knife, but his knife lives behind the seat of his car, not in his pocket.
And you'd advocate something like this, a purpose-built snake kit, rather than having a survival kit with everything and all the bells and whistles with it's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Much better to have something that's specific to that task, like having a fishing kit, a fire making kit, snake.
Well, for me, I go bush, I have one of these with me. In my big first aid kit that usually stays in the car because it's big and bulky, I have the big ACE bandages. However, something that I can wear on my hip or clip to my water pack or my backpack. So it has 2 of those smart bandages with the pictograms, which means that gives you, and I'll talk about multi-purpose, there we'll do arm or a leg, you need 2 bandages for these smaller ones. It has nitrile gloves, which, you know, we've got to cover your PPE so that there is a risk with snake bite, obviously that there's blood. But the other thing is, if you do get a bite, there is potential that you could get venom given first aid. You get some venom on your skin will probably protect you. You wipe your eye, suddenly it's in the body, or it gets in your mouth. So gloves are a good idea.
And like all first aid, PPE and your gloves are the first thing that should go on.
There's a crate bandage here, and that's for locking the splint on, which I'll do a demo of. There's a splint, and that's one of these splints. So they're called a SAM splint, but they fold out, lightweight, great for snake bite. But a sprained ankle, a broken ankle, they're a great bit of kit, and there's still that's super lightweight.
Yeah, moldable.
The other thing that's in here that a lot of first aid kits that people don't think about is a shock blanket or a shell blanket. So it's a reflective aluminum type material. In the tropics, this is shade, or in the cold weather for some of the New South Wales southern parts, this keeps you warm. A lot of people don't think of that in first aid kits, and this is a really simple bit of gear.
A lot of people from our viewers will realise, because we actually saw one of our other episodes, we constructed shelters using the space blankets and garbage bag shelters. They're a great piece of equipment in all environments.
Recently I spoke to the aircraft crew of CareFlight, which is our aeromedical evacuation people. One of these spread out is a ground sheet. Suddenly a helicopter can see it. Even if it's at night time, you can reflect light off a fire with it, or if they shine their big spotlight down, suddenly it shines back at them.
And some of the radar reflectors as well. They're a great piece of kit.
So there's a pouch in the back of here just so you can put a bit of your own personal stuff in there. So they do think about that. There's an instruction card and a pen. So a little pen and instruction card which takes you through it, because you get bit by a snake, you might be by yourself, might be someone else. You need to be able to go step by step, so it takes you through everything. And there's also a handover form, so that at least if you're handing over to the paramedics or your on-site medical, you ask the right questions. And lastly, back over this side is actually a gauze dressing. And what we're trying to do with snake bite is actually popping a gauze dressing, ideally on the bite side. Don't waste time looking for one if you don't have it, but the idea of a gauze dressing comes out with the venom detection kit. So if you can get a dressing on the bite side, this creates a great sample spot for later.
I suppose it's also marking the bite side as well.
It does. But what happens is that in the piece of gauze, which as the pressure goes on, the venom sometimes leaks out, a bit of blood. That gets contaminated in the gauze. The gauze then becomes the best sampling for the hospital to tell what bit you. So at the hospital they have a venom detection kit, and that kit can actually detect what type of antivenom is required by just the site. So that's why in Australia we don't need to take a photo of the snake or kill or catch the snake, because we can test for the venom. However, they don't want to take the bandage off. So with this little bit of gauze, which I'm happy to show you, we can use it and not have to take the bandage off to get a sample.
Right, which is ideal.
Yeah, because that bandage is keeping you alive.
Okay, Chris, let's suppose I haven't had my sleeves down, I haven't been wearing gloves, and I've been collecting some firewood, and I've been bitten on the arm by a snake, and I don't know what it is. What do I do?
Yep. So first thing, we don't try and kill or catch it. We don't go chasing it, and we move ourselves to get to a place of safety. I'm not saying you need to run around or anything like that, but simply if you're in a creek bed, maybe move yourself out of the way so that you have no further interaction with that snake. Second thing is get you to sit down, because what happens, snakes, their venom affects the body, change in blood pressure, you fall over and suddenly you're no good. So getting you down, getting you seated is really important. And ideally, if I can, I'd even lie you down because you can't fall any further. Sitting up's fine at the moment, and your PPE is still protecting you, because obviously there is the real potential that where there's one snake there's more. Next thing we're going to do is just have a look at what I can do for first aid. So I've got my custom kit. Open it up, crack out my gloves, because I need to look after myself. And it's not that I don't know what's got, but it's also just that fact that if you've got venom on you, I don't want venom on me, because if I can't rescue you, I'm no good here. So the gloves provide that barrier once again, and they're not sterile gloves, they're simply just protecting me from biohazard from blood or from venom. Next kit I do is I get a gauze dressing, and this is where I get you involved in it.
Right.
So I quickly open and
because I'd be pretty
you're pumped.
I'd be a bit scared at this time, a bit worried. And
so I'll get you just to pop that on and hold pressure.
Yeah.
So when you're holding pressure on that bite site, this is involving you in your first aid treatment, and getting you to actually to participate while I get my stuff ready. Because this is nervous for me, I need to calm myself down. So once you've done that, now one of the things that you see a lot of people want to get scissors and cut clothing off, cut pants. That's not needed. Okay, if you've got bulky things in your pocket, we'll take them off. If you've got a watch on the hand you've been bitten, we'll simply put it on the other hand. If you've got any jewellery, we'll remove it, because some venoms cause swelling. We don't want that complication. You're holding good pressure on that. Next thing I'm going to do is grab out a smart bandage. So this could be one of these as well. Right. But for today I'm going to show these because I want to show your viewers how good these pictograms are. So when you put on a bandage, think of it, you put it on like thread tape, not like duct tape. You know, duct tape comes off a roll. Yep. We'll put it there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bite site, work to the tip, and then work back up. Now there are a variety of different ways that people teach bandaging. We try and, well, I want to follow the Australian resuscitation guidelines. So that's where we're getting quick pressure to there, we'll go to the tip and we'll work our way back up. Right. However, I'm yet to see evidence that says that there's nothing wrong with starting here and working your way down. But the guidelines which are made by medical professionals give us that process. Right.
There are a few variations on
there are a few
medical things here.
And as far as I'm aware, there's no evidence that suggests it to, but for consistency, follow that. So you're holding nice pressure there. I'm going to go. Now these bandages on a skinny hand might not need to be applied as tight, but on your forearm it's fine. And see how I'm turning that pictogram? It's turning into a nice square. So I get a good wrap. And just so the viewers can see, you can see the pictogram starts off as a rectangle, and then when it gets to the right desired pressure, it comes into an even square. And that, for me, lets me know I'm doing it right. And for you, can you feel that pressure?
Yeah, definitely. That's quite very firm.
So just get straighten your arm out for us and put your hand to your elbow. Roll this back up and I'll go down. Now get you to straighten your fingers for me. And tuck your thumb in. If you're bitten on a digit, there's nothing wrong with bandaging that digit. Okay. Because I prefer to have venom trapped here than venom trapped in the hand. Go right down to the end, we leave the fingers exposed unless they were bitten. Right. And then we come back up.
So you can check your cap refill.
Well, you probably won't get ideal cap refill because you're stopping lymphatic movement.
Right.
So you're going to find there's a reducing capillary refill. So I'm coming back up.
That is quite, yeah, that's very, very...
And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that to trap lymph bone and try and stop this venom from spreading is it needs to be quite firm, where if that was a sprained ankle, if you did that tight, you'd probably be punching me right now for hurting it.
Now, because I've got my sleeve bunched up, but is that going to hinder that at all?
No, I'm going to go straight over the top.
Right, okay.
Now, some bandages come with clips.
Yep.
With snake bite, we don't want to use those clips because what they do is create fake snake bites. The other thing is they tear gloves. So all I'm going to do, because these are good quality bandages, just tuck it under. That's locked in. I'll get my second bandage. And that's why these kits have two. And I strongly recommend, even if you're using like a heavy elastic crate bandage, a heavy elasticized bandage, not a crate bandage, that you have two in your kit. There's also a variety of other uses, but for snake bite you need that. I start over where I've wrapped, lock that in, and I'm moving all the way up. And as I said, I'm not going to take time cutting off clothing. It's going to go straight over the top. You've got a button here, that's not going to cause a major impact. If you had like an army jacket that had a pocket on it, you might take out what's in the pocket. You just straighten your arm and just leave it straight. This hand can support your elbow. The reason we get you to straighten your arm is because that's the way we want it splintered. We don't want to sling it and splint it, we want it splintered straight. From here, I'll tuck the tail in, That's out of the way. So that's what we call pressure.
Oh,
However,
really
you can still move your arm. And if you move your arm, what you'll feel is that pressure gets pushed up into here. So moving your arm is bad. So the next bit is immobilisation, and that's where we could get the splint out, or I've already got one open here.
Feel a bit like the last mummy, but it's really strong actually. It's a lot firmer than what you think it has to be.
So that the viewers can see is that it is a bit of effort to get 2 fingers underneath that. So if you're using a bandage that doesn't have pictograms on it, because there are good bandages out there that don't have pictograms, there should be a fair bit of resistance for me to get my hand under there, where you can understand where something like that has no elasticity, you're just not going to achieve that pressure.
So if in doubt, err on the caution, the side of too tight better than too
tight. There is associated risk with that. However, the way it's been explained to me over the years is that the risk of a too tight bandage is that you could have fluid pooling and all that sort of damage. There's little valves that could get damaged. Those are only issues that affect you when you've survived the snake bite.
Right.
So surviving the snake bite is our number one.
Right.
So obviously we don't want to do further harm. So we don't want it too tight. But if you're unsure, yes, erring. And that's why those pictograms are great, because they're at that. The ideal pressure for snake bite is about between 55 and 75 millimetres of mercury. That doesn't mean much to our viewers, however, those squares are sitting at about 60 millimetres of mercury, so they're in the middle of that range.
Right.
So we get our splint, pop it there. Now this, noting I'm doing the splint on the bottom of the arm, not the back of the arm. Because if I do it on the back, you can bend it, where if I'm doing it on the bottom, you can't. Absolutely. In an improvised situation, I could simply use a stick. I've got a sharp end and a blunt end. I'll just pop the blunt end up here, and that would achieve the same purpose.
Right.
However, we're looking at being prepared. We've got the splint. Now this is where this little bandage can be used. So this is the it's just a pressure bandage with those clips. However, I'm not a fan of those clips. Just for the purpose, I'll just show it with this bandage. All I'm doing now is just locking this in. Now this isn't tight, this is simply locking that splint in place.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. It's a lot lighter.
Now, if this bandage is put on nice and quickly, and I'm talking within the first 3 minutes, apart from the discomfort of the bandage, you should be fine as far as venom goes. The longer the gap between the bite and the bandage, the more effects you're going to feel. The other thing that happens sometimes is people get bitten right in a vein, and then doesn't matter. So the bandaging probably doesn't do anything, but if you're ever in doubt, the bandage is your first point of call.
What sort of time, say, is it like they say 2 to 3 minutes if you can?
Ideally. So that means that this kit needs to be with you. It's no good if it's in your car that's 20 minutes away, it's got to be with you. Obviously if you're doing fishing, camping, hiking, having a bandage in your pocket is important, and if you have a custom kit, that's even better.
So let's say if you weren't prepared and you didn't have any of this stuff with you, you were bitten in an area, you would be better off lying down and moving to not let that. I mean, I suppose you're just taking your chances.
You're taking your chances either side, because if someone's coming to give you help and you know help's coming, then yeah, staying still and calm is really important to reduce that adrenaline and avoid shock, because shock kills a lot more people a year than snakebite does. But if no one else is coming, then you're going to have to make that decision. Well, I need to find help. But having that preparedness first means that you, when the situation does arise, you have that issue, because this could easily be a broken arm, and apart from the pressures, everything we've done here would support a broken arm as well.
Right. Yes. And obviously the old tourniquets are all outlawed, and some of the myths like you know suck the poison out of the wound, and I suppose do some of those sort of myths still survive?
They do.
Out there.
So we'll talk about the first one, is the tourniquet. If I pop the tourniquet here, that will stop blood flow. That's what a tourniquet does. But what happens is you're probably going to be able to tolerate that tourniquet for maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. Then you're going to let it off, and then we're going to have a massive volume come through. So it's ineffective from that respect. Cutting and sucking the wound, I want to keep you calm. If I go and grab my knife and start digging in how's your blood pressure going?
Yeah, you'd be pretty scared.
Yeah, so
motivated already.
Yep. So that's one, we're creating shock. The other thing is once I start sucking and I do manage to get venom, let's say I've got a hidden talent where I've got vacuum lips. Who's got the venom now?
Yeah, exactly. You could have
I'm trying to
protect
myself, and gum's a great absorbent. So cutting and sucking doesn't work, and even those plungers that they sell, you can buy them overseas. They do not work for Australian snakes. I can't comment on whether they work for overseas snakes, but any of that sort of stuff there's not the scientific evidence backing it. This works for Australian and Papua New Guinea snakes. Right. If you're outside of that area, you need to consult the local first aid training provider because it does differ.
Now, would you get a potential mark the bite side as well, that sort of thing?
Because we put the pad there. So what I'll show you now is how that comes out and that we can actually hand that over to the hospital staff. So there's a few things. Once we've got this established, we're going to bring transport to you. We're not going to let you walk too far because even though we've immobilised this limb, we really want to mobilise your whole body. So walking a couple of 100 metres to the car is fine, but it'd be better if I could bring the car here. We'd pop you in the seat, lay the seat back so you can't fall any further, and get you to medical aid pretty quickly. That said, there's been many people that have had up to 5-6 hours with this on and have had no ill effects. However, once the bandage is removed in an intensive care setting in a hospital, people get sick really quick. I'm not going to go into what the hospital staff do because that's another in detail thing, but if we can get this done, we've set up the best thing we can to get you to that tertiary care facility, because snake bite can only be treated in Australia at tertiary hospitals. It's no good in a medical clinic or a first aid centre. They're only going to do this as well.
Right, I see. Now, if this was a leg, exactly the same principles, and obviously you can't move and you're going to get a splint, a much bigger splint. Would you, if it's on the foot and the leg, would you remove the boot, cut that off and that, or would you leave that in the case of a sprained ankle?
So when we talk about removing boots, it's generally for sprained ankles. If you've got boots on, you probably haven't been bitten, because most of the bites are well on the lower extremities. They're on the tips of the hand and the feet. So if you did, say you were one of those people that wore boots and shorts, which is a massive fashion faux pas anyway. However, your boots and shorts, you got bitten up here, yeah, you're probably going to remove the boot, as long as it's not taking too much movement, because you want to provide pressure down the leg. And some snakes, like the death adder, the king brown or mulga, they do cause swelling, so removing the boot's fine. However, if you've got pants and boots on, you're not going to have dramas with an Australian snake. I'm not suggesting go out there and start treading on them, but shoes, long pants, looking where you're going reduces that risk massively. What happens when you get to hospital? They wire you up for sound. We can take this splint bandage off, and we'll actually have a look at where that little dressing went. So this is still providing pressure, and I'll get you to pop your other hand underneath this so we don't move it around. We've got your bite site, which is around here.
Yep.
What the hospital staff can do, and they'll probably do it with some tweezers, but we'll just do it here, without undoing the bandage, is just start trying to find that dressing, because once we find that dressing, which is just there, we can pull that out, and without destroying the integrity of the bandage, this comes out. That's a sample that our pathology labs at the hospital would use what's called a venom detection kit. They'll test that, bandage stays on, you're still safe. They can then work out if anti-venom is required, and if it is required, they can work out which species of snake is responsible.
Wow, we haven't taken it.
We haven't taken it off, and that's little things that we can do to best set up the next one, because obviously first aid works in handover and handover, but if by putting a cheap dressing in like this makes the job easier in a tertiary setting.
Could you use any other sort of piece of material for that? It wouldn't matter.
Yep.
It's that principle, yeah. That's
just you've got that there. The other thing is it does mark the bite site, but what they do in a hospital is they look at this under a light, and they'll be able to see whether there's blood or whether there's any hematoserically fluid, and that gives them their test sample without having to take the bandage off. Because you can imagine, once that bandage comes off, they sit around you in the hospital and wait for you to get sick. So that's where, you know, and there's been lots of people that have had a systemic amount of venom in their system, had a large amount of venom in their system, they've showed no signs or symptoms. This bandage comes off and they get systemically envenomated. So the bandage does trap the venom quite well.
I suppose, and you obviously know the medical care should you get that rush.
Well, that's why that's why I was saying that it happens in a tertiary care. It happens in a HDU, usually a high dependency unit or an ICU, where they're ready to breathe for you and do all the things. They'll have the anti-venom ready.
And they give that anti-venom to you before they take the bandage off?
In some cases, and that's a clinician's role. That's outside of my scope.
Right.
But normally they wait to see your effects, because obviously there is risk associated with anti-venom. There's risk not doing it, but they, if you were already critically ill, they'd give it to you before taking this off. But a lot of people are not, because this works so effectively that they're actually not ill. They are able to quite easily walk in a hospital. They look good. They take that off and they're down.
Wow. So, well, that's actually marvellous. That's tremendous. Rightio. Well, that's actually learned a lot from doing that, and it pays to have all that stuff in your kit and on your person. So any short walks away from your car or into the bush, because you never know, make sure you're wearing the right clothes, right shoes, and of course having this sort of kit in your backpack, particularly if you're going for a walk anywhere in Australia, particularly in the hotter areas. Really, you're really foolish if you don't.
Yeah, whether you build your own first aid kit or whether you buy a custom one, you're paying 65-70 Australian dollars, get you something decent. If it's a $20 kit, you get $20 worth of equipment.
That's your life, really. And of course, it sort of doesn't degrade. I mean, something like this is good quality bandage. You can really see.
Yeah, it's that good heavy elastic. And I think what I do is like about this is, under stress, you've got that reassurance where you can see that pressure's right, and that's a big thing. Where with these bandages work quite well, they're quite a good quality. However, if you can't see the pressure, you need that training. And I'm certainly not advocating for people not to do training. I recommend everyone should do a first aid course and have those skills. However, panic with a snake bite, it's great to have something that works for you.
Great. If anyone actually going to the bush for anything, really, can't stress the importance of having first aid training, not just for your own help, but being able to help someone else. For anyone going to the bush, that should be a priority. Everyone should have first aid training.
Well, I've even used this on my mother. So my mother got bitten by a snake, and I used those exact bandages.
Wow, that's tremendous. Now, and that would be enough to do a leg as well?
Yeah, so that's 4 meters of bandage, so that your overlap just gets a bit shorter, but there's plenty. That's why there's 2. One bandage is just quite not enough, and if you've got someone who's got big muscly legs or big muscly arms, you do need 2.
Right. Well, Chris, this has been fabulous. I've learned a lot, and I hope everyone out there has as well. And in another episode, we're going to have a look at some of the specific Australian snakes and how they rank and some of their habits and that. So in another episode coming up, we're going to have a look at some of that specific Australian snakes, and we're going to have Chris here showing us close up about them, talking about them all. So look forward to that. But once again, thank you so much, and I hope this was a big help for everyone out there, and look forward to the next episode. Can't shake your hand with this one, so I'm going to have to use this hand. So we'll see you again. Thanks a lot, Chris.
I'll leave you to it.
Brilliant stuff. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this talk we've had with Chris Perbedy about Australian snakes and snakebite first aid. In a future episode, we're going to be meeting with Chris again and discussing specific Australian snakes, and we'll have them live here to show you. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to the channel, like, share and tell others about it so that we can help rekindle bushcraft in Australia. If you'd like to do a bushcraft course or a survival course, please check out our website, bushcraftsurvivalaustralia.com.au, so that you can see what courses are coming up. My name's Gordon Dedman, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Bushcraft Survival.